Vestbredden live.
Yes, hello, and welcome to the live recording of the podcast West Bank Live. Today with B'Tselem, and us creating this podcast is me, Pernille,
me, Villa,
Magnhild. Yes, so the World Council of Churches Ecumenical Accompaniment Program in Palestine and Israel, also I think most known as EAPI, was created in 2002 by the World Council of Churches. It was based on a letter and an appeal from local church leaders to create an international presence, and the ecumenical accompaniers are on the ground. They are accompanying people, they are offering protective presence, they witness, monitor and document what they see. And you can check out the EAPI website if you want more information about the program.
And with us today we have Abdulkarim Sadi from the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem. So welcome, Sadi. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And so B'Tselem aims to end the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And since 1989, the organization has documented Israeli violations of Palestinians' human rights in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. And Abdulkarim Sadi, you have been with the organization now for 18 years, so you really know, you've seen a lot of things and you know the situation very well. And you work as a field researcher in Qalqilia Tulkarem district, which is in the northwest of the West Bank. And
also Jenin area.
Also Jenin. And we met when I was in the area working as an EA in the start of 2020.
Yeah.
So Sadi, it's very good to see you again.
Thank you very much. Really, I'm so happy to talk to you and to other friends. Yes, I am working in the human rights field since 34 years, but with B'Tselem for 18 years. Before B'Tselem, I worked with the Swiss organization called ICRC, and before ICRC, I worked with Palestinian Human Rights Organization. So most of my life, I work in the field with the people, documenting the violation of the occupation and the Palestinian people. Yeah, we are working. I am a member of B'Tselem organization, which is contained from 45 employees, Israeli and Palestinian. Half of us Israeli and the other half are Palestinian. We have 11 field workers in West Bank and Gaza Strip. So our work is to follow up and to document all kind of violation which was committed by the Israeli occupation against Palestinian civilian. Yeah.
And I understand now the situation. I mean, it's interesting being in Europe under the COVID regulations. Everywhere has been affected by the pandemic, but my understanding is that the situation in Palestine, you're experiencing this great uncertainty, these tough regulations, and also living under a state of military occupation by Israel. And could you tell us what are the regulations in place now in the West Bank, and how are these experienced by Palestinians?
Yeah, you know, after March, lockdown start in the West Bank. I think, according to the observer, that the Palestinians starting the lockdown very, very early. So we start from 5 of March for almost 2 months. You know, no one allowed to go to other area. And we think in B'Tselem we have to find a way how to solve this problem, because our work is to visit the people in the field directly. So with the new regulation, with the lockdown, we found alternative way is to make a phone call with the victim and with the people, and also other sources to verify our information which we got. So for 2 months, almost we work from our houses, using our source of information, talk directly to the people who are targeted by Israeli occupation, and we find this way is working. In the shadow of lockdown, we expect after lockdown start that the violation will be decreased, but unfortunately we found it is increased sometimes.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I got some statistic during September, which means that for us there's no difference between in the shadow of lockdown or without lockdown. So for example, we found during September that 365 checkpoints put in the West Bank, which and this number for us, this is like there's no lockdown. No, it means that the Israeli behave normally. It's supposed that 365 checkpoint not to be like this, to be small number, but the occupation behave as normally. So, for example, during also September, there's 29 demolishing houses during 1 month. There's destroying property during September, 76 cases for different families. There is for house raid and raid for the villages and the camps and the cities, there's 316 times. So this number, this figure, show us how the Israeli didn't change his policy during Corona time. So when we compare the result of the month, it seemed very same. So it means that the Israeli occupation didn't change his policy against Palestinians. I tell you, every day I am following up about the raids. The raids mean that the Israeli army enter Palestinian areas. It's supposed that area A, like Tulkarem or Bethlehem, the city itself, not to be entered. But every night, the Israeli army enter area A. So I think we have very bad experience about the Israeli behavior during this time, during the 7 months. The Israeli army behave as there's nothing, there's no corona. So there's checkpoints, there's killing case, there is house demolition. For example, before 3 days, the Israeli army went to the one of the community in Jordan Valley and totally destroyed the whole village, totally. And this village, it is not a big village, it is a very small village. They destroyed 18 houses and 29 structure for sheep and goats and cows. This means that 74 person who live in this small community are deployed and replaced from that area. 41 of them are children under 18. So now with the before 4 days winter start and the rain start. So now there's no shelter for those people. No shelter also for the animals. During destroying this community, there's 30 ton of food for animal destroyed also.
And
There,
yeah.
there's a solar system donated by European also destroyed.
And for those who don't know have as much background information into the situation, maybe you could just briefly explain why are these demolitions happening and why do you see these raids now? What's the justification?
Look, at least for Jordan Valley, they declared, and Benjamin Netanyahu declared since a long time that he will annex Jordan Valley. For me and for us, we think this is the policy, how to remove and to delete the Palestinian presence there, so as to clean up totally this area from Palestinian, and to be officially already Jordan Valley under the Israeli occupation, but they didn't want to have any Palestinian there. When you force the people to move from that, it was not allowed also for those, those people who are leave to be in other area, because now the Israeli army declare about very huge area as fire zone area. It means it was not allowed for any Palestinian to be there. Okay. It means there's no Palestinian present there. It means that all Jordanian Valley in the end will be under Israeli control.
And do you think during the Corona crisis, the world's attention has been focused more on the ongoing pandemic, their own problems, and also with the tough restrictions being imposed by Israel? Do you think Israel is exploiting the situation in order to make the situation worse?
Look, my friend, I tell you, I think Corona time is very important and very useful for Netanyahu, because now in Europe, mostly the Palestinian dependent in the European support, in the also European policy. Now every European country are busy in their country because of Corona, so no much attention was paid toward West Bank, because now every country like Norway taking care of their people, and because this is a global pandemic problem. So and now Netanyahu used this, that all the people are busy in their affair and to be free. But I am sure there is very important role for the European policy. But unfortunately now with this pandemic virus, every country are busy, and United States 100% support Benjamin Netanyahu. So I think the Palestinian will pay the price.
And Palestine, of course, have been.
Really, we are afraid that this pandemic will stay for a while, because we expect that during this time, because the whole world are busy of each other, so Netanyahu will totally clean up the whole area. And you know what is the meaning of the Palestinian losing Jordan Valley? First, Jordan Valley is the fruit and vegetable basket for the whole West Bank. Jordan Valley, rich with water, and thousands and thousands of Palestinian family dependents on agriculture in Jordan Valley. It means those family, their source of income will cut off, and it will be, what is the meaning of the people being without source of income? Um, Violence will increase, problem will increase, terrorists will increase, because poverty create this violence mentality. So yeah, I think Netanyahu now was very relaxed and behaving in Jordan Valley, especially, and by the army cleaning up the Palestinian community, and the whole world are busy.
So, in my understanding, on the one hand, you have had a lot of strict restrictions being imposed in Palestine to prevent the spread of the virus. And Palestinians already face a lot of restrictions traveling to Israel, where a lot of people work. But maybe you could explain, how has the pandemic impacted the way Palestinians now travel to Israel to work?
Yeah, in the beginning, the Palestinian and the Israeli, for a short time, thinking, and they didn't know how to solve the problem, because since 1967, the Israeli government paved the road for the Palestinian to be a worker in Israel and to be dependent on Israel. So we have in the Palestinian community, we have a very good percentage of families dependent and working in Israel. So those people have no other source of income. So if they didn't work in Israel, we have, or the Palestinian Authority or the international community have to find a way how to, find source of income for those people. And also, Israel are very interested of Palestinian worker, because they try before to bring Palestinian to bring workers from Asia, from India, from Thailand, but it seems that they are not satisfied from those people. Why? Because those people receive their money and they transfer from Israel to their country, but the Palestinian receive their money from Israeli, work owner, and pay the money inside Israel, because according to the agreement, we the Palestinian took their stuff from Israel. It means that the Palestinian part of the economy circle, so the money remain inside Israel, not like the Chinese or the Thailand people who transfer their money to their family. And the second thing, that the Palestinian labor is cheaper than people from abroad. There's no benefit for Palestinian, like insurance, like other benefit from according to the Israeli system. So, sorry. It is cheaper for them to have Palestinian workers. So in the beginning of Corona crisis, the Israeli obliged to have a solution for Palestinian. And this has happened for the first time the first time during the occupation, because it was not allowed for Palestinians to stay overnight. But during this time, the Israeli authority allowed for Palestinian, the whole worker, to stay in Israel and to oblige the people, the Israeli owner of the work, to have, to found a place for those workers to stay in.
Mm-hmm. So it's really shown how interlinked Palestinian economy and the Israeli economy still is, despite this segregation between the West Bank and Israel.
Yeah.
So Corona is obviously having a huge impact in the West Bank, but it's not the only major development that has influenced the countries and the region. And I think, Pernille, you will speak a little bit more about the political developments now.
Yes, I would like to ask some questions about the political situation in the region, and especially the normalization deals we've been seeing this fall. The United Arab Emirates signed a normalization deal, followed by other Arabic countries, normalizing diplomatic relations with Israel. Could you please say something about the Palestinian response on these normalization deals?
Yeah, this is like everyone know that this is the game of Donald Trump. Donald Trump decided and ordered Dubai government and Bahrain to, we and all the Palestinian following the news when they make a celebration in Washington, that the people of Dubai have no any clue what are they going there. They are ordered by American to have this deal, to make a diplomatic relationship with Israel. We are, look, as a Palestinian, we are not against that, but it is important to solve the main issue, is the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian problem. In the end, we, the Palestinian, will encourage all the whole Arab country to make normalization with Israel. But at first, we have to solve the main problem, the main conflict. Of course, the Palestinians are very frustrated, and we notice that there is a protest and there's a demonstration increased in West Bank, mostly every week, every Friday, in different places. There's demonstration. Today, for example, there is in the north side of West Bank, there's 5 locations of demonstration. In Nablus, in Jenin, in Salfit area, in Ramallah area, in Tulkarem, in Kufr Khaddum. So the people was frustrated. You make a relation with Arab country and Muslim country, and the main issue in the whole world for the Arab world is a Palestinian issue. You have to solve the problem. Now, in the opposite, Netanyahu is complicate and restrict the Palestinian life more and more. So the people, of course, was very frustrated, but we know the game. We know the game. This is American game. And this is why now, according to our observation and follow-up in the ground, that the Palestinian will be more than happy if Biden win the election, because at least he will not be tough on Palestinian. For example, Donald Trump closed the Palestinian representative office in Washington. Donald Trump cut off the money of the Palestinian Authority, and ordered some country not to support the Palestinian. So we think as a Palestinian that now with the election in America that the result to be with Biden, because we think that the situation will be more better than more than now.
So the people have spoken and they are demonstrating. But how about the Palestinian leaders? Do they have any statements on this?
You mean about the
normalization deals?
Look, the Palestinian leadership in very critical situation because they, the people are more courageous to make statement more than the Palestinian leadership, because we are not independent. We need the support. I mean, the Palestinian Authority need the support of the neighboring and the Arab country. So, but the Palestinian people already complain very clearly of the normalization, because the normalization should be after the Palestinian cause will be settled, and will after they find a solution for Palestinian problem, not before.
I read in the news about Fatah and Hamas making a deal that they want to plan Palestinian elections to maybe in the context of Israel making normalization deals with neighboring countries. Is that just something they say?
Yeah, now the Palestinian leadership are not in a good mood, because they are also restricted by the American politics and by the Israeli politics. So and it's supposed since long time that the Palestinians themselves to unified, because we know, the Palestinians know who facilitate and who participate to split the Palestinian into two parts. So it's supposed that the Palestinian since long time to reunified again. So now there's great effort made from politicians from Fatah and from Hamas to make the unity. And I think this is very important. This is very important that the Palestinians to be united all the time. Otherwise, the other neighboring country will bargain the Palestinian Authority, because all the time they said, we have, you have to represent one people, one nation, not two people in Gaza Strip and people in the West Bank. And I think Israel will not be happy by reunited again. So they now the border between West Bank and Gaza controlled by Israeli and not allowed for any Palestinian. Only those who got a permit from Israel are able to visit Gaza. So let me say some Palestinian leadership and the grassroots make kind of pressure on the Palestinians to make unity, and which is very important, and we need it. We need this unity to be a split of being Fatah here and Hamas here. We have to unite and to have one political position.
But of course, this has been talked about for a long time. But under the normalization agreement between the United Arab Emirates and Israel, Israel agreed to suspend the annexing of the Jordan Valley, which you have talked about is planned to be annexed. But this, yeah.
Okay.
Why was it necessary for Israel to make the step to not annex at this moment? And is that a small victory for the Palestinians?
I tell you, look, in Israel, in Israeli politics, there's something important. Nothing holy. Nothing holy. You know, how can we understand of cleaning up the area which was destroyed before 3 days? It is part from Jordan Valley. It is part from Jordan Valley. So no, I think Israel only respect their interest. They didn't respect other. They can say, to say, it is not a big deal. But in the ground, the important thing in the ground. In the ground, they control the whole Jordan Valley. Also, in spite of that, they declare and they announce that we, frozen the step to annex Jordan Valley. But in the ground, already annexed.
Yeah, as a ecumenical accompanier, I spent my time in Jordan Valley, and I could unfortunately see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sadi. I think Magnil, you would like to ask some questions about the future. What will happen next?
Yes. So I thought we would start with, we have briefly touched upon it already, but as we all know, the US has a very big, well, it plays a big part in the conflict between Palestine and Israel. And as we all also know, they have elections this week. And even though we're all waiting in excitement to hear how it goes, and that we don't know for 100% sure yet how it goes, we wanted to ask you about what do you think the different, or what does the outcome of this election mean for people in the West Bank, and what are people hoping for, and what do you think can be the different reactions to the result of this election?
Yeah, I think the result of the American election is very important, and we hope that Biden will get the election because, since the beginning of 2020, all funds for Palestinian Authority was stopped, and the Palestinian tax money was frozen in Israel since February. It means that now the whole Palestinian employees receive less than half their salary. What we expect that the new American administration will release the money for Palestinian Authority, because now Palestinian Authority live in very, very hard time, especially financially, because Donald Trump succeeded to cut off all source of income for Palestinian Authority. And also, we expect also from the new government in America to help the Palestinian to regain their money from Israeli Authority, because since February, the money of tax are frozen and they didn't handle to Palestinian Authority, and it is billion of dollar. So this will make the life of Palestinian more easy. And second, we expect politically to make a kind of pressure on Israeli government to relive the two-state solution, or find any political solution between the Palestinian and Israeli. Donald Trump tried to impose, and to order, but I don't think that Biden thinking in the same way. So they will give the chance for politicians to find creative solution for Palestinian and Israeli.
Mm.
And by the way, it was not difficult. The peace process is not a miracle. It needs strong and wise and people believe in peace and in justice. And it is easy. It needs like a strong will to take a decision, forward peace.
Since you mentioned it, and the peace negotiations and a peace deal, what do you think is necessary for it to happen, for peace negotiations to start?
Yeah, I think the political support for Palestinians and the political pressure on the Israeli government will oblige them. I tell you a story. When the Israeli authority decide to build the route of the separation wall around Bethlehem, I remember in that time the whole European country make very strong statement against Israel. Israel in that time obliged for 7 months to freeze their project. This means that the European political position is very important, because now Benjamin Netanyahu behave like a preferable boy. No one complain against him, but I think when there is someone complain or say something, he will change. He will change because now there's no objection in his behavior. But when he found objection from United States, from European country, I think they will make a revision. And peace is not difficult. It need sometimes the big issue need small step. If small steps start, then the second step will be easy.
I see. So when we will in very short time take some questions, but just sort of like to summarize all the things we have been talking about, because it's a lot of things going on now with the COVID situation, and it's a pressed economic situation, and you mentioned that the demolitions of houses and arrests are still happening in spite of the COVID situation, and then we have the normalization deal, and then the US election now at the same time. So taking all those things into consideration, do you have any thoughts of how the coming time in the West Bank and Gaza will be, and also what are people hoping that will change in the coming time, and what do you think is, because you talk with a lot of people all around the West Bank all the time, so we're sure that you have a lot of impression of what are people's concerns, and sort of like what are the thoughts for the time ahead?
Look, now the situation in the whole Palestinian territory is not easy. There's a huge pressure from different directions, from pandemic virus, from restriction, and from political situation. And we afraid that this kind of pressure will stay for long, because to stay for long, I'm sure there's a reaction. We hope that there's no, that thing to be solved soon. Otherwise, when the life is difficult, it is not strange that the reaction of violent way will be in the ground. So, and we have experience as a Palestinian when the Palestinian behave violently, the Israeli are ready to deal with this violence, and who will pay the price? The normal people and the innocent people. So we hope not that there's no violence will be later, and that the wise people and the politicians to find any kind of solution which is accepted by Palestinian and Israeli, and to put an end for this conflict.
Then we have a question from Hanna, who is asking, how has Sadi experienced the olive harvest so far? Has there been any increase in settler violence? Have the farmers with their trees in the seam zone been able to harvest their olives? Are the agricultural gates opened as they should, or is COVID-19 affecting this?
Yeah, every year during October and November, the olive harvest season start and stay for 2 months. This year it is exceptional year for many reasons. From the beginning of the year, the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli Authority cut off the coordination system. So now, in the past, when the Palestinian farmer need to go to their land, they ask the Palestinian, and the Palestinian talk to the Israeli. Then they found a schedule for Palestinian farmers to reach their land. This year, there's no coordination between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli Authority. So now the Israeli Authority start to coordinate directly with the farmers. So this year, the Israeli DCO, or civil administration, set up a plan by themselves and inform the Palestinian about the dates which the farmers are able to go during that time to their land. So, but unfortunately, during this season, there's many tens of Israeli violence against Palestinian by attacking the Palestinian who harvest their olives, stealing the olive fruit from their land, because not any Palestinian allowed to reach his land anytime he want, only in specific dates, in a specific time in a year. So the whole year that the settler who are close to this orchard, are able to stolen and to harvest the olives. So in my area, at least in the north, there's 8 cases I document that the Palestinian told me that their olives was stolen. And in Nablus area, there's also 10 cases, of attacking the Palestinian farmer while they are harvesting their olives by Israeli settler. So this season it was very tough season for the farmers. And now we are in the end of the season of olive harvest. So I expect within 10 days all the Palestinians will finish their olive, because this season is not good olive season like the previous year.
I understand. And then we have a question from Björn Gunnar. He's asking if have you experienced any increase in Israeli pressure on B'Tselem employees during the last year? And there's an addition to the question: if so, from whom? Is it IDF, settlers, or government?
There's a local Israeli organization following up our work, not only the B'Tselem. We're breaking the silence, the other Israeli human rights organization. So we are all the time under following up, but we are working according to international law. So we are not afraid from anyone. we document the violation, against the human rights. So we are not against the law. Of course, the Israeli settler, the Israeli extremists are not happy, from our work. But we believe in our work, so we don't care if they are happy or not happy. We will continue our work. We will continue our mission because we believe in human rights.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so thank you so much, Sadi, for joining us here this evening, for taking the time to talk to us and explaining the situation. It's been really, really interesting, and it's been lovely to see you again. So I'm very glad we got this opportunity to catch up today.
Thank you very much. Really, I am so happy and glad also to talk to you and to also to know new friends. And we hope in the future to be in touch.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who also listened to our live stream. If you popped in late or you want to share this episode with your friends and family, you will find the episode online, published after we end this session. And watch out for the next episode. See you.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.